Hi, this is Stan Lyle with MasterMath. During the lesson, you're going to come to some You Try It slides where you're asked to do problems that relate to the lesson. Hit your pause button, try the problem, and then hit the forward key to move on to the answer. I hope you have a really good time today.
Well, you're back again to work on factoring, and that's because factoring is kind of tough. This is the third lesson we've had on factoring, and in this lesson we're going to discuss a third method for factoring trinomials. And it's not like one of these methods is the correct method. Any of these methods is the correct method if you find it the easiest way to go. I'm just going to arm you with three tools. And here's the third tool, and this is the one I usually use. I start out by creating a couple of bracketed entries. I know that I'm going to have two factors, and each of them is going to be in a parentheses, and so I could start there. Now I just got to fill in each of these parentheses. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to start with my a term, my 2x squared, and that's easy to factor. That's 2x times x. So I'm going to put 2x in one of the brackets and x in the other. Now to figure out what else goes in each of those brackets, I'm going to turn to my c term, my minus 35. And I can see that 35 is 7 times 5. I mean, it could be 35 times 1, but I'm never going to get to minus 3 as a b term if I use 35 times 1. So let's try 7 times 5. And I know that the 7 and the 5 are going to have different signs because my result is negative 35. But I don't know which is positive and which is negative, and I don't know where the 7 should go and where the 5 should go. So I'm going to turn to my b term to help me figure that out. I need to get a difference between the multiples or the products of those factors that equals minus 3. Let's see what that looks like. I've got two factors for the 2, a 2 and a 1, and I've got two factors for the 35, a 7 and a 5. And I'm going to have to figure out all the combinations of one of the factors from A times one of the factors from C. So one possibility is I take the 1 from the A term and put it in the front, and I put the 2 from the A term in the back, and then I put my 7 in the front and my 5 in the back for my C term. Now there's another one, then I either add those or subtract them. There's another possibility. My 2 could be in the front and my 1 could be in the back, and then I could add or subtract those. And now all I've got to do is figure out which of those combinations, if any, results in a sum of minus 3. Well, let's try that. Let's try the first one. 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 5 is 10. Can I add or subtract 7 and 10 and come up with minus 3? Well, I can. 7 minus 10 equals minus 3. So I know that in my final answer, I'm going to be multiplying a 2 times a 5. And that'll tell me where to put my 5. If I put my 5 here, I won't be multiplying the 2 times it because I'm going to multiply outside times outside. So I need to put my 5 here, which means I have to put my 7 here. So let's do that. I put my 5 on the right and my 7 on the left. I'm almost there now. I know that this is minus 35, so I know that either my 5 or my 7 is going to be negative and the other is going to be positive. But which is going to be positive and which is going to be negative? Well, my b term is minus 3. I need a negative result for 7 minus 10. In order to get that, my 5, which I'm multiplying by the 2 to get 10, my 5 has to be negative. And my 7 has to be positive. So my factors are 2x plus 7 times x minus 5. I know some, or maybe a lot of you, are a little bit confused, but we're going to keep working at this, and it's going to come together for you. Try this problem. Hit the pause button, work on this problem, and then hit the forward key and move on to an explanation where I'll go through step by step how you factor this. In order to factor this trinomial, the first thing I'm going to do is create a pair of brackets. And since my a term, my first term, is z squared, I can see that I'm going to have a z at the front of each of these brackets. Now I just got to figure out what else goes in there, and I'm going to look at my c term to figure out where to go next. My c term is minus 40. That means that one of my c terms is going to be negative, and one of my c factors is going to be positive. So I'm going to have a plus sign in one of the brackets and a minus sign in the other bracket. And since both brackets just have a single z in them, it doesn't matter which one I put the plus sign in and which one I put the minus sign in. Well, now I got to factor that 40 and come up with some way, in some set of factors, that has a difference of 6, of positive 6. And I know it's going to be a difference because one of these is positive and one of these is negative. So I'm going to be subtracting them. And now I got to just figure out which combination of factors for 40 I should use. And maybe the easiest way to do that is to completely factor 40. 40 completely factored down to prime numbers is 5 times 2 times 2 times 2. And now I can think of combinations of those factors and see if any of them come up with a difference of 6. Well, 5 times 2 is 10, and 2 times 2 is 4, and the difference between 10 and 4 is positive 6. So I know my factors are 10 and 4. But which bracket do I put the 10 in, and which bracket do I put the 4 in? Well, I want positive 6. So I want my 10 to be positive and my 4 to be negative. So I'll put my 10 in the first bracket and my 4 in the second bracket. And I factored the polynomial z squared plus 6z minus 40. Well, let's try another example. And in this one, I've got a negative sign between my a and my b terms, and I got a positive sign between my second and third terms. Now we're going to start out the same way. We're going to create a pair of brackets, and then we're going to look at our a term, and it's 2x squared. And that's easy to factor. That's 2x in one bracket and x in the other bracket. Now we're going to look at our c term, plus 3. And we're going to see that I could get plus 3 with a couple of different factors. It could be positive 3 times positive 1, or it could be negative 3 times negative 1. And at this point, I don't know which it is. But if I look at my b term, it's going to be obvious. My b term is negative 7. So my factors for my c term have to be negative. And since the result is positive 3, they both have to be negative. So I'm going to have a minus sign in both my first and second brackets. Now I just got to figure out what combination of my a term factors times my b term factors results in a sum of minus 7. So I'm going to list out all the combinations. One combination is I take the 1 factor from the 2 and I put it in the front, and I take the 2 factor from the 2 and I put it in the back. And then I factor my 3 and I put the minus 3. Remember, we figured out this had to be minus 3. I put that in the front, and I put the minus 1 in the back. And if I multiply that out, I got 1 times minus 3 plus 1 times minus 1. I've got minus 3 plus minus 2, and minus 3 plus minus 2 equals minus 5. Well, I want a minus 7, not a minus 5. So I know that's not it. The other combination is I put the 2 factor in the front, I leave my minus 3 in the front, and I move my 1 factor to the rear, and I've left my minus 1 in the rear. And I know this is a plus because I'm putting my minus sign there. And now I multiply that out, and I've got minus 6 plus minus 1. And minus 6 plus minus 1 equals minus 7. And minus 7 is my b term. So now I know that I want to multiply my 2 times minus 3. My 2 times minus 3. In other words, I have to multiply that 2x times the second term in my second bracket. So I'm going to put minus 3 in the second bracket and minus 1 in the first bracket. And my factors are 2x minus 1 times x minus 3. Try this one. Hit your pause button, try the problem, and then hit your forward key to move on to my solution. Okay, let's start with a pair of brackets, and then let's start filling in those brackets by looking at the a term, 3x squared. Well, that has to be 3x and x, so I'll put 3x in one and x in the other. Now, my c term is positive, but I could get a positive 3 by multiplying 3 times 1 or by multiplying minus 3 times minus 1. Which is it? Well, let's look to the b term to figure that out. The b term is minus 6, which means that my c term has to be factors of minus 3 and minus 1. Both are minus, so I'm going to put a minus sign in each of the brackets. Now I know my factors for the c term are 3 and 1, but I don't know if I want to put the 3 in the first bracket or put the 3 in the second bracket. And I'll figure it out this way. The combinations that I have are to take the 3 factor from the a term and multiply it times the 1 factor from the c term, and then add that to the other factor from each of the 2 terms. Or I put both of my 3's in the beginning and both of my 1's in the end, and I add those. Which is going to get me a minus 6 or a positive 6? Well, 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 times 3 is 3, so 3 plus 3 equals 6. And that tells me that I have to multiply my 3 times the 1. So I want my 1 over here. And I want my 3 over here. So my factors are 3x minus 3 times x minus 1. Well, that's our third lesson on factoring trinomials, and I hope it's starting to come together for you. Now it's time to test your skills. Go to www.mastermath.info and you'll find worksheets and quizzes there to help make sure you understand how to factor. Well, I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope we see you again real soon.